Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Double or Nothing review. I am John Pollock alongside Wai Ting.
Hey, John. How you doing?
Happy Monday morning. How are you?
Happy Monday morning. Always happy to start the week off talking about the Sunday night pay-per-view.
Yes, it is. Well, it's Memorial Day, so we have the day off Monday.
I'm sure, isn't it some holiday? It's May 2-4.
Not for us. That was last week.
But it is the 24th.
But because next Monday is June the 1st, the holidays get pushed back.
Right.
This is usually our Victoria Day weekend, but we had Victoria Day last week because of the way the calendar fits.
Well,
so it's another Monday for us in Canada. But yes, we will be getting into Double or Nothing from the greatest wrestling venue of all time, Louis Armstrong Stadium.
It was pretty sweet. Yeah.
I think, listen, with all due respect, I did watch the Best of the Super Juniors today from a KBS Hall in Kyoto, which has just those beautiful stained glass windows. I mean, but nothing topped the atmosphere of tonight's show at Louis Armstrong Stadium. And I thought this show was just absolutely incredible.
It was amazing. Like, at a time when I think the standard of these AEW pay-per-views is already so high, I felt this was among the top of them, which makes me feel comfortable in saying this will definitely be a contender for show of the year. I feel it was probably one of their stronger shows in the
I thought so
history.
too, for a lot of reasons. Like, yes, you had the great wrestling, you had a great diversity of types of matches, you had some big angles, including the show closing one. Even the stuff with like Mick Foley, I just thought it got the show off to such a great start. So rather than just jumping all over the place here, we will get things started here. But we do encourage everyone to quickly hit the subscribe button on this YouTube channel. You know, we go through the Saturday night's main event so we can get to this show. But you can catch our review from last night. Do you think we will get through this one in 40 minutes?
I don't think so.
No?
I really don't think so. I also think there's just a lot more to talk about on the show than there was last night.
I do have to give a big update. After 4 hours, my parents' power came on last night.
4 hours.
4 hours they were
Sorry to
without
hear
power.
that.
Wild, yes. I went to their house actually today. Dude, there was one of their, just off the other street, this giant tree came down in this person's lawn, like big ass tree. It was like, man, it was like a tornado hit this part of the city. It's like, we got rain. It wasn't like life or death over here, but man, they got like
on my street.
badly.
Actually, some branches fell down. So I mean, it wasn't probably not that unusual to find throughout the city. So anyway,
okay, just wanted to give everyone. I know everyone was at the edge of their seat. Had to give the update.
We can give the full weather report tomorrow, but we do have a big show to talk about here.
Okay, so tonight, Louis Armstrong Stadium, which is next door to Arthur Ashe Stadium, which is undergoing renovations. I would have been really curious to see how many people they would have put in Arthur Ashe Stadium, which is a much bigger venue. There was a lot of demand for this show. It sold out a week ago, and like the prices on the secondary market today were very high. Like this was a tough ticket to land at the end. Like this is, you know, typically for a lot of these bigger AEW shows, like, you know, you go into the secondary market, like $30, $40. Like this was significantly higher. So, you know, I think this would have done really well at Arthur Ashe Stadium. The final number from WrestleTix was 14,292, and the number they kept repeating on the broadcast was 15,015. So going into tonight, it was projected to be their fourth biggest gate in history, second highest in the U.S. I hope Tony Khan gives out the gate figure at this show, because they were probably right around the $1.5 million mark. So this was a very successful show for AEW. Like this is the, you know, of these pay-per-views that they have been doing, and we don't have a pay-per-view number. You know, this was, you know, this was a really big success by any pay-per-view standard for the company.
And if you were to maybe pinpoint exactly what the reason may be for that, I mean, number one, you have to look at the location. Like it's a hot location. Great market for them.
Yeah, it's not like this just picked up when they announced the stip, but I think the stip really helped at the end for the reason the demand especially on the secondary market, increased, and the pay-per-view number should all be credited, I feel, to, you know, the vast majority to the main event. But it was a great market for them. Like, they moved a lot of tickets before any matches were announced. So this one was, you know, weeks out, you could see they were on track to be selling the show out. But certainly, I think the stipulation helped a lot, and hopefully we will get a solid pay-per-view estimate for this.
Yeah, whatever the pay-per-view number is, I think you could directly attribute to what in my opinion is the top drawing card, which is the main event here. And that bodes really well if it does do well for MJF and Darby Allin, of course. But I mean, you're also talking about a really hot company on an incredible streak of these high-level pay-per-view events. So all of that to say, there is a lot of anticipation heading into this one, more so than the average AEW pay-per-view, I even feel.
The buy-in started with Renee Paquette in the ring, and she introduces Mick Foley, who came out to a really big response. And it was, I mean, the venue was like half full at the beginning here. And we had heard from Braden and Davey that it was an insane line outside during the buy-in to get in. So it seemed like it was a lot of people all trying to get in. And it was I would say by the time the pay-per-view started, it looked pretty full by that point. But Mick came out, new music. He pointed to Noel, who was there in the front row, and you could tell this certainly was a big deal to Mick Foley. He said, "This is one of the greatest nights of my career." So big, he wore his Crystal Gale shirt, and says that AEW, he had fallen out of wrestling, but AEW is the reason he fell back in love with it, and mentioned a lunch he had with Tony Khan, which was actually 15 years ago, before this guy was ever involved in AEW, but did have that, you know, pre-existing relationship. And more to come with Mick Foley on the show, but got a nice reaction here, and it seemed like he was really taken aback here by just the being in this new company on his first night, and obviously had a very big segment to come later, which I imagine was, you know, for him, his big highlight of the show.
He immediately felt like a bigger deal in this world than I think he has in the WWE in quite some time. Where, I mean, whether it just be because he's kind of been around so often, it doesn't really feel that special anymore, or the fact that he's largely been reduced to more of like your comedic figure over the past, you know, however many decades. Like here, he actually felt more like, I would say, the sort of like, you know, more serious Cactus Jack, ECW, WCW side of him. And he was playing to an audience that was probably seeing him as much more of a hardcore legend than just Mr. Sacco.
First match is Divine Dominion against Zeta Steel and Viva Van with Christopher Daniels in the 5-minute eliminator. They mentioned Viva Van being on a previous Double or Nothing where she was used as an extra and now being on the card here. Cross laid her out with a boot on the floor, and, you know, Van is battling her way out of the corner. Steel comes in, hits a big satellite DDT, and they're running up the clock, and then it's in the final minute that Cross lands a kick. They double team her. Bane hits a German, and they finish her with a double choke slam with 14 seconds to go, and Divine Dominion win and thus have no challengers.
Yeah, they gave Steel and Van a lot more than your typical like dropper set. I don't know about that, John. I mean, plenty of people can, I guess, take the five-minute tag team challenge, but I mean, good showcase for Bane and Cross, you know, in front of a big crowd.
As Daniels is checking on Steel, they take out Christopher Daniels. I was like, oh, maybe in another, this could be Scorpio Sky's return. Scorpio Sky and Daniels challenging Divine Dominion, but no one came to, well, I guess we got some people coming to his aid as Ty Mello and Anna Jay ran down with weapons, and Divine Dominion bailed from the ring. I hope they have to put these two through the 5-minute challenge. It's not like these two have had any matches together of late.
I mean, they might have them take it.
Possible.
Yeah.
Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, and Wheeler Yuta against Hook, Shibata, and Anthony Bowens. It seemed like Shibata had a bit of an extra oomph in his step here. He was going really hard here. He called Claudio into the ring, and they're trading blows. And Shibata is just waving on chops from Garcia. He chops back. They isolate Hook, and then Bowens gets tagged, and the others are thrown out. And so he's going 3-on-1 against the Death Riders, and it ends with Yuta and Garcia holding Bowens as Claudio hits a running uppercut and just pins Bowens in 10 minutes and 35 seconds. A kind of just out of nowhere finish, but That was it, I guess. Bowens was the low man on the totem pole here.
Mm-hmm. It was fine.
Foley was asked about his friendship with Owen Hart as they tee up the tournament matches coming up later on the pay-per-view. The final match of the buy-in was Orange Cassidy, Roderick Strong, Mark Briscoe, QT Marshall, and Big Boom AJ, accompanied by Big Justice, the Rizzler, and Harley Cameron. Now remember, folks, we're in New York, the same state that prevented Nick Wayne from wrestling on that GCW show back in 2022. So the Rizzler and Big Justice, I guess they were able to just skirt by on this show, not being part of an actual match. Nor did they do anything physical, did they?
I guess not. Yeah. I mean, well, you know, the Rizzler is a much bigger deal than Nick Wayne.
I guess so. Yeah. But I mean, it is worth noting, like, there is no blading allowed in New York. And this was a show that did not have a whole lot of blood. There was actually blood in this match, but it was certainly not intentional. Yep. So we got a million people out here. They're taking on Shane Taylor Promotion. So it is Shane Taylor, Lee Moriarty, Anthony Agogo, Carly Bravo, and Sean Dean. And they're accompanied by Christian XO. So we had like 15 people involved in this. This was bigger than Stadium Stampede. So it comes down to this spot where they are going to deliver a doomsday to Bravo and Dean with QT climbing the top, and then Rizzler and Big Justice dump Vita cocoa water onto them, and then QT slips off the top rope. So he just abandons the finish. They do a makeshift like double powerbomb spot and then pin Bravo in 6.5 minutes. And then they celebrate, and Big Boom AJ has been like hit with a machete that we missed in all of this. So he's just all bloody. And then Shane Taylor Promotions surrounds the ring, and Eddie Kingston runs down with Ortiz and Mance Warner to chase them away. Dude, there was so much going on here, and way too many bodies, and all under the halo of Vita cocoa water.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you know, for your buy-in match, to throw your product placement match in with the Costco guys, I mean, I don't think you can get so angry at this. Worth noting that QT Marshall was taken to the back, and I mean, that looked to be maybe a legitimate injury here. So
yeah, like he fully like just slipped here and had to like bail to the floor here.
Yeah. So we hope he's okay, and we hope plenty of coconut water was shared among the roster.
I hope so. I hope some make goods were made. And then we've got like 10, 15 minutes left, and Renee and Foley are in the ring to preview the main event. And Foley takes some shots at MJF, stating that he's not fighting to win, but instead he's fighting not to lose, and predicts Darby is going to win. So this prompts MJF to come out, and it's not to his music. And when the place realizes, oh my God, we're getting Mick Foley and MJF together in the ring, this whole place is just buzzing. And there's huge chance of bald. He tells Foley that you became a legend by failing in every big moment of your career. He also takes a shot at the Knicks and their chances of winning, which are, I mean, at least this series that they're in, I think they have a very high probability of winning. More bald chance. He compares Foley to Darby, the two of them being underdogs, and Foley gets his response, and he literally says, I just want to take this in for a moment because I never thought I'd have this feeling again, as he just literally turns into like Mick Foley promo mode, and it's like 1995 for this guy for a minute.
Wait a second. Was this man not involved in the Invisible Man versus Sandman? Okay. He played a very pivotal role in that one. This almost,
well, you know, his big problem, he didn't take that moment a couple of weeks ago.
He didn't take it in.
Truly take it in.
Yeah.
So he does mention that, yes, I did lose a lot of matches, but I did beat someone named The Rock. And man, did The Rock get booed here when they name dropped him. And Foley says, I did lose matches, but I never lost in 2 minutes and 15 seconds. That's not a loss. That's a disgrace. And Foley explains that I just want to go out and steal the show. Darby wants more than just stealing the show. And he ends it by saying that, MJF, you've got wavy hair, and tonight it's waving goodbye. And with that, MJF kicks him in the balls, and then Darby races down. MJF runs to the back, and Foley gets on the mic and finishes his promo telling everyone about how he learned of Darby Allin. It was through John Moxley all of these years ago, and watching him succeed, and how Darby shared that Foley was one of his inspirations, compares him to himself, and says that he taught everyone, that he's telling Darby this, that greatness doesn't come in one package, and to win one for all of us weird ones. And to quote a good friend of mine, bang, bang. This was just awesome, this segment. It was tremendous. Mick Foley was excellent in this segment, and this is like the perfect, like, we talk about these pre-shows, and they're all designed to get you to buy the show. Like, typically, it's a bunch of matches that are probably, you've decided if you're going to buy the show. They use these last 15 minutes to totally sell you on this main event, and I just thought this was effective, and everyone was great in this segment.
Agreed. I thought this was a hell of a way to close a pre-show. For many, I think this particular interaction between MJF and Foley was probably the dream interaction you would have when you just think about Mick Foley interacting with anybody on this roster. So to get it here in the really the last go home thing, attached to a pay-per-view, I thought did a great job in making you pay attention, first of all, and it also in content did a great job of promoting the main event for tonight. As for Foley himself, I thought he sounded great here, like serious, smooth in his delivery, had some great lines, and about the waves in his hair. And I thought like a segment like this, coupled with like what he was able to say about Darby Allin, it demonstrated the value that Mick Foley at age 60 can still bring to a wrestling promotion like AEW. So he came across really, really strong here. And I mean, I certainly hope for more of this type of Mick Foley.
Yeah, I mean, he also went over like all his, like his hip, his knees, and when Darby ran out, I was like, here is the ghost of Christmas future for Darby as he was meeting him. Maybe we'll get a Christmas.
I mean, they all know it. He knows it, but like, that's kind of why we are so curious about a guy like this. He's one of those outliers that I guess lives for the moment, right?
So a great segment to close the show, or the buy-in, as we go into the main show, and they are starting off with the I Quit match with FTR against Adam Copeland and Christian Cage, and this crowd is incredible. They are so loud. Copeland comes out, the whole crowd sings his song, and then FTR is out, and Stokely, very early on, hands off barbed wire to Dax Harwood, and Cage grabs some barbed wire and wraps it around the rope, and we're just going to the big spots immediately where he's choking Dax on the rope, but he won't quit, and Cage and Cope then whip Dax and Cash with Paul Turner's belt, and they're continuing, like the intensity was just through the roof here. Like they were just having this violent match right from the get-go. They smash Christian's injured arm into the chair, so he's selling that. Copeland brings out a ladder, and Copeland, he's ringside as Dax gets a toolbox, and they went so far as to explain, why is there a toolbox here? Well, it was here to build the ring earlier today. They just put it to the side. So there you go. You got your answer after all these years. And Cage takes out these pliers, using them on Dax's nose, and then to Cash's balls, he uses the pliers. Adam Copeland, who just went above and beyond this match, he takes a spike pile driver through the desk to take him out temporarily. Cash brings out a cinder block, and Cage gets his arm out of the way, so they put the arm through the cinder block and bang it with a chair. That this looks really cool, but it was like, this is like the safest thing in the world. If I had a broken arm, I'd be going for the, like, if anything, if I was hitting the chair on the cinder block, I think my hands would be like just rattling from this spot. But this was
it got a good reaction live, and that's because I imagine like from way far back, it probably looked pretty cool. But up close, yes, it fully looked like his arm was being protected. But if it was one of those like, worked cinder blocks that like smashed upon impact, maybe that would have made for a different reaction.
So they kind of had to straddle this line because it's like this super intense blow-off match, but they're doing the I Quit gimmick, and you are going to do some comedic lines, and they reserved them for Christian. And he basically was leaning to this one where his hand is smashed. They put the mic in front of his mouth. He goes, I banged your mother. And the fastest guy in Queens on Sunday night was Nigel McGuinness, stating, in the immortal words of Gordon Soley, 4 words, 26 letters. I banged your mother. I laughed out loud for this line.
They must have told him about this line. There's no way he's that fast in counting letters.
Well, I mean, if you do count them, it's like 16 letters, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. So it was, I don't know if he literally just did this off the top of his head. If he did, it was so quick, and I laughed so loud at this line. It was so good and just so quick that he had this. So Cage is fighting alone. He takes a shatter machine, and then Cash gets these wrenches, and this is when Copeland returns with a pair of spears. Dax is begging off, and Cash is stating from the floor, okay, we'll say it, but it's just a distraction for Stokely to clock Copeland with the watch, the dreaded watch. And now that Stokely is involved, the music plays, and out comes Beth Copeland. She got a last name this time, and she comes out and destroys Stokely. And then Dax takes Beth, and he throws her so hard into like the side of the steps. I thought this woman was going to come up and look like she had just been lacerated to hell. She went so hard at the edge of these steps, but she just got right back up and she seemed fine. So maybe it just looked worse than it was, because he just tossed her into these steps. So this table has been placed on the floor this whole time, and Cash douses it in lighter fluid and lights the table on fire as Cash is about to spear Beth through the table when she moves out of the way, and then Cash spears Stokely as they crash through the burning table. And Tony Schiavone says, it's the first match, and they're burning people. And I was thinking, like, my God, we have 5 hours to go on this show. This is how we are starting at this intensity level. There's a concerto set up by Dax.
In what world is this allowed, but not a blade to the forehead?
Well, you know what? This is, it's a fine question, Way. It's a fine question, but I mean, I guess the Dudleys did set the precedent, I guess, in New York of, tables on fire they're okay. But Nick Wayne, no, we draw the line somewhere. You can't gig and no Nick Wayne. So Copeland is being told to quit by Dax. He says, quit if you want to see your daughters tomorrow. When Beth returns and low blows Dax, Cage kicks him in the balls. Copeland hits the pile driver, and then Cage puts Dax in the sharpshooter. Copeland applies a crossface, but that's not enough. Beth, underneath the steps, reveals Spike has also made it into New York as well. And Spike got commissioned in New York as they drill the nails into the forehead of Dax, who quits at 19 minutes and 35 seconds. Yes, they are the tag team champions. Yes, Beth got her revenge. But the headline, Christian Cage recaptures his watch.
Oh, of course. Yes.
What an opener this was.
Yeah, I thought this was an outstanding match, and I think maybe the best compliment you can give it is that I felt this was one of the best in the catalog of Edge and Christian in their matches. I thought, to me, it excelled in action, spectacle, pace, and storytelling.
I would go so far as to say Cage had some really great matches with like Omega and some others. I would say this was Copeland's best match in AEW.
Sure. Yeah. I'm talking about Edge and Christian, period.
Yeah. I mean, this was just an incredible blow-off match. This is one of the great openers you're ever going to see on a pay-per-view.
Yeah. Like, at their age, with the high standard of violence for these AEW gimmick matches, or a state where you can't do blood, I thought they managed to still somehow leave people gasping. And I mean, they gave you one of the biggest still protected spectacles, I would say, in pro wrestling, in the flaming table spot. That was, I thought, wonderfully executed and used perfectly for, like the sort of like crux of like this portion of the feud. And that's Beth Phoenix finally giving her shot at Stokely, right? And I thought there was
and
great...
it's such a callback to just like, again, Mick Foley as well, who's like just such a overarching theme on this show as well.
And just great usage of like the wrist injury for Christian, the wrist watch, Beth's return, and Spike's return. So by the end of all of this, despite having like a really long intermission between this match and the prior match, I feel like they managed to make this feel like a very complete and satisfying story in that was told through these 3 matches. And so I mean, this was a match that I think beautifully closed the trilogy and gave you just this incredible babyface moment for this victory. And I mean, this was already a hot crowd that was probably going to go crazy for any match that they were going to see. But to get this match and have it be this good with a flaming table attached to it, I mean, you had incredible levels of energy to start the show.
And you're thinking, okay, they've got to now follow this, and the graphic comes up for Okada and Takeshita, and you just heard this roar from this crowd who are just like, bring us more. And we go into this incredible video on Takeshita with subtitles and talking about photographs, how they are more than just an image. They can tell stories about how your journey began and remind you of sacrifices and show you where you are going. And after tonight, Okada, our final image will be of me defeating you.
Beautiful video, like told entirely in Japanese, which I don't recall having much of from Takeshita, in this style. And we've seen from WWE, we've seen from AEW at times too, but like I don't think AEW uses these sort of like pre-produced personal video profiles enough, with guys just strictly speaking their mother tongue. I thought it was a very effective way to showcase like what kind of is behind Takeshita beyond his limited English.
So when the bell rings, it's just a huge reaction for this. And they teased the Raging Fire and Rainmaker very early on in the match. Okada takes over after a neck breaker, and we see all these different counters. There's setups to the Raging Fire and Rainmaker that followed. And then after the wheelbarrow by Takeshita, Okada just gets up, hits a shotgun drop kick, and then spins around into the lariat, and both men go down. The crowd's on its feet at this point. We're just minutes in. On the edge of the apron, Okada hits the Rainmaker, and Takeshita lands on the floor, and Okada adds with a DDT, and Callis warns Okada, don't tombstone him on the floor. He wants to protect his asset. And then Okada listens to Callis, comes back down to check on Takeshita, and now Takeshita grabs him and hits a brain buster on the floor. So now Callis is fuming at this. And then we get into all their big strikes. The power drive knee gets stopped as he runs into a tombstone by Okada. The Rainmaker gets stopped with a Blue Thunder Bomb, and then Okada hits the Emerald Flosion, and Takeshita rolls into this deep cradle, and man, did this crowd bite on this simple cradle. The backslide is executed by Okada into a short arm Rainmaker, hits the drop kick, and then he goes for one final Rainmaker, and Takeshita hits his own to stop it. Power drive knee gets caught. It's just boom, boom, boom. Takeshita rebounds with the power drive knee, and Okada kicks out at one. The place is going insane. And then he just lifts him for the Raging Fire and pins Okada in 19 minutes. Folks, I challenge anyone to find a pay-per-view to start with two matches of this quality. This was like two 5-star matches back to back to start this. They could not have been more different matches either.
A contender would probably be a prior AEW pay-per-view where I feel like we've had a very similar reaction to just like this.
I don't know if we've ever seen a 1-2 like this.
Well, I feel like you said this exact same thing, a few reviews ago. But anyway, they're on an incredible run, and this is just the high level, high standard these pay-per-views are setting. But this match in particular, I felt like this was the type of match that gave you the feeling right afterwards that you may have just seen one of the best matches in your life. I thought this was as creative an Okada match as we've ever had in AEW. And I feel like the grudge was incredibly well sold in the match. And that's why something like, that is, yes, overused these days in the kick out at one, I thought was way more meaningful in this instance, because anybody can kick out at one to maybe show their strength. But this kick out at one, after that beautiful sequence, was meant to show how much Okada hated this guy. It was an ego-driven kick out at one to be able to say, I'm not even going to give you a 2 count off of your move because I just don't like you. I also found it interesting how you had Callis actually show sympathy for Takeshita in wanting to protect him. I mean, out of his own personal interest, of course, but having Takeshita break that offered you an explanation for why Callis may have decided mid-match to give the go-ahead for the eventual turn on Takeshita. But all throughout the match, I thought it was like the great storytelling, through the grudge that I thought was well told, while you're also seeing some of the most incredible modern professional wrestling and athleticism that you could see between anybody on this planet today. So it was a beautiful display.
Mark Davis and Rocky Romero are helping Okada up. Callis is in the ring, and they're standing against Takeshita. And you don't know what exactly is about to happen when Kyle Fletcher makes his return, and he comes down and he stands alongside Konosuke Takeshita and then walks up to Okada as Callis then intervenes. And so the Don Callis family members leave, and Fletcher is left with Takeshita. He hugs him, raises his arm, and then drills him with a clothesline. And this crowd, it was almost like they were as much sad as they were upset at this turn. And they immediately turned to asshole chants. Now, I'm just going to say this clothesline better be this guy's new finisher, because Takeshita was like out cold from this clothesline. And then Fletcher pulls him up for the brainbuster, and Okada and Fletcher then both pick up the belt. But Okada lets go of it, and he lets Fletcher have the belt as he nails Takeshita with the belt shot. So it is the end of Proto Shida.
Proto Shida, yeah. I think he was down from the heartbreak as much as the actual clothesline itself. Hard to get up when you've been just...
Well, the man was through a war. This was the clothesline of death at the end. So Fletcher still aligned with the Don Callis family, and I mean, you would be optimistic about this. Like, he had a meniscus injury, and it was concerning of how long this guy could be out for. But I mean, he was out here, he was physical, and you're definitely going toward a Takeshita Fletcher showdown at some point.
Yeah. I wonder if there was any temptation for them to do some sort of angle in the body of the match itself to screw Takeshita out of the championship win before maybe setting up a third match where he might beat Okada. Maybe not, but I'm really glad they gave Takeshita the win in the moment of shine before all of this stuff, because he already has plenty of reason to want revenge on the Callis family, but I also thought it gave him a really great heroic moment by successfully defeating Okada. My sense is more of a triple threat, between all three of these guys, with equal want of the Continental Championship. That's what he's holding, right? Or is it the International Championship?
International.
Yes, yep. Right, of course. This was great. Absolutely great.
Yeah, I mean, if they had gone the direction you were suggesting, I mean, the easy spot would have been that there's a hidden wrench, and then they realize Fletcher planted it to help Okada afterwards. But I like the way they did this overall, and you could certainly do the rubber match at some point with Okada Takeshita down the road as well. You've created a lot of it's Takeshita versus the Don Callis family now. So
yeah, and
El Clone is up first.
And I imagine Takeshita will probably find allies in some form to help him. And I'm kind of curious who that would be. Kenny Omega would be perfect, wouldn't he?
It could be. So then Athena and Mina Shirakawa would have to keep the ball rolling here in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament. Athena runs her knee into the steps, so that became Mina's target. Mina got thrown into the barricade, which has the LED board, and I'm always a fan of when the LED board just short circuits upon contact, and that's what we got here. Mina works on the knee and eventually hits a tornillo to the floor, and Athena catches her with a head scissors and a curb stomp, which elicits a Super Dragon mentioned by Excalibur. And then Athena is on the top for the O-face and slips. And this was the exact same corner QT was on as well. And she had to go to the second turnbuckle to hit the O-face, and it gets caught. Mina uses a seatbelt and then an hurricane into the figure four. Athena makes the rope and then counters into a tombstone and hits the O-face, pinning Mina in 11 minutes to advance.
Yeah. I was actually a little surprised by it, because I think Athena is, first of all, Athena was booked as your sympathetic underdog in this match rather than, in my opinion, the bigger babyface of Mina Shirakawa. So I thought it would be their way of protecting Athena in a loss by giving her an injury excuse. Instead, they had her beat Mina despite having a bad leg. And I mean, maybe that'll probably be logical, for the fact that she's the ROH champion, and maybe the fact that they wanted to book Saray versus Athena after this. matches. But I thought it was a good match. Both women are terrific. Crowd seemed engaged, but it did not exceed the level of something you would typically see on like an edition of Dynamite or Collision. So to me, it didn't exactly feel like it was worthy of like the very high standard of your AEW pay-per-view in terms of both action and interest.
It was also following The Godfather Part 1 and 2. So this was a really tough position on the show. I thought it was,
and
like
it was a late
match.
replacement.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. This would have been Willow this would have been Willow's match with Windsor. So the conglomeration are getting Kyle O'Reilly ready in the back, and we go into Jon Moxley and O'Reilly for the Continental Championship. No time limit, and Jim Ross joins Excalibur and Nigel McGuinness. This was his lone appearance on the show. He seemed not as prominent in this match. Like this was probably the best match to use a Jim Ross for. He did refer to Kyle O'Reilly as that kid. It's not quite Carlos Colon level, but
I mean, to Jim Ross,
I guess in comparison, yeah.
Yeah, like he would. We're all kids, I suppose, aren't we?
Moxley is evading the submissions early of Kyle, and they're starting off. It's like a feeling out process, and Kyle is lighting him up with kicks on the floor, and Moxley gets out of the way, and Kyle kicks the post with his shin, and this becomes his downfall throughout this whole match. He's basically got to work without his kicks, and he tries in the ring, and he can't put anything behind these kicks, and he falls to the mat, so Moxley just smells blood. He attacks him. He bites Kyle's eye. Just go right for the eye. Why not?
Or like the brow.
Yeah, this was getting to like retina territory. Kyle has to shift to knee strikes from the shin, and then Moxley kicks the bad leg, and he's caught with an arm wringer off the turnbuckle coming down on the shoulder. And then we go to the ground game, and Kyle gets the ankle lock. He's stomping Moxley's ankle, and there's a curb stomp by Kyle. Moxley then hits a cutter. Both men go down. They're standing. They're trading, and the Death Rider is hit by Moxley. He puts the rear naked choke on, but Kyle rolls back to the ankle lock, and Moxley grabs Kyle's ankle. So they're both going for ankle locks at the same time. Kyle gets on top for a cover, and as Moxley kicks out, he holds onto the ankle, and Kyle is caught alone in the submission, and he's struggling, and he has to tap in 18 minutes and 45 seconds as Moxley retains, and we get the corners coming into the ring after with the Death Riders and the conglomeration, and Moxley comes over and offers his hand, and the two shake hands. Sorry for trying to bite your eyesight out.
It's all part of death jitsu, John.
Yeah,
right?
I guess so.
It's all that's allowed in New York rules.
Yes.
No blading, but you could bite the eyes. I thought this match was beautiful, as I think all of their matches have been. I mean, I feel like we've said it many times, but I think Kyle O'Reilly might be my favorite pro wrestler that's able to translate MMA techniques into professional wrestling. I think his striking looks great. Obviously, the fluidity of his movement and perfect technique on the ground is just so beautiful to watch. And through this feud and through this style of match, I feel very safe to say that he's probably one of Jon Moxley's favorite wrestlers and opponents, because Moxley is just like he's just seems so comfortable wrestling this style of match and looked to be having so much fun. To me, the match struck a perfect balance between MMA and pro wrestling. And with the pro wrestling part of it being principally based on like the wonderful storytelling here, with them flipping our expectations, and instead of Kyle being the one using the ankle lock, he ended up being the one more susceptible to the ankle lock in the end here, ultimately tapping to it. So I thought it had some great selling from Kyle specifically, great intensity from Moxley, and I thought O'Reilly's entries into those arm bars and the ankle lock throughout the match were very creatively designed, beautifully executed. The crowd was so behind O'Reilly for that final bit of selling before the tap out. And you really felt in that moment like you saw the potential in Kyle O'Reilly as a major single star, like you have many times throughout this Moxley program. So I just hope that coming out of this, they have something strong for him, stronger than just being a trios champion wearing a backpack, because he should be and could be a bigger star, as a singles.
Yeah, I think the way both of these guys think, it's very much in that Danielson mold, where it is, yes, you have to take a lot of liberties in pro wrestling, where you can't make everything by the book in terms of realism. But when you choose something, in this, it was just like the leg. Like, imagine in a match where your leg gets hurt, and how would that match look like for the next 14 minutes when your leg is not going to heal in 14 minutes? How would that change? And that can be it's tough to pull off, but it opens up all these avenues of things you can do and just focus on one big injury. I really like that aspect of this match as well. And honestly, this program has been the hallmark of Kyle's entire AEW run.
And it's been amazing for Moxley too. He's got a tremendous amount of character growth. I mean, that brief flirtation with being a babyface, which kind of still exists, when it does currently exist. I would still say Moxley is still very clearly a babyface here. I mean, look at the handshake, look what he's doing with Ospreay. It all came about from this Kyle O'Reilly feud. And I feel like Moxley celebrated this victory, almost as big as when he won a championship, the AEW championship or even WWE. This was a huge mountain to climb for Jon Moxley, and they established that wonderfully through the prior matches by having him, lose to Kyle O'Reilly repeatedly.
Next up is Will Ospreay and Samoa Joe in the Owen Hart tournament. Joe enters the ring, and he immediately is hit with the Os Cutter. And Joe comes out of the corner, and he just pummels Ospreay. So they are just starting immediately at 100 miles an hour. There's a springboard 450 by Ospreay, and then he goes for the death ground, the dreaded death ground. And Joe is able to get to the rope quickly, and we're calling for hidden blades right away. Will goes for the space-flying tiger drop and lands in a coquina clutch on the floor. And then Will's head gets rammed into this barricade. And so Joe works on the neck. Ospreay then stomps Joe's taped-up arm that Taz says has been this secret about Joe, his bad arm. It's not so much of a secret anymore. And now, after all these years, people have finally detected, oh, wait, this guy's always got his arm wrapped. Must be something wrong with it.
I've never noticed. I've never really seen him tap to arm-based submissions.
Yeah, it's it's part of the remnants of that outdoor weather. It just did a number on his elbow.
That's why he was wearing a poncho.
It's arthritis.
Okay.
Joe does the walk-off to avoid the Os Cutter, which was just a great spot. You knew it would come into play somewhere here. I didn't know it would be the Os Cutter. Mm-hmm. And he hits him with a senton. Ospreay gets up from kicks, and he's just calling on Joe. Joe slaps him and hits a rolling elbow. And then there's a float over by Ospreay into the Styles Clash. This place went insane for the Styles Clash. It looked really impressive. Joe's taken his fair share of Styles Clashes, but it's been a long time since this guy's been up like that for a Styles Clash. It looked really impressive.
And he's probably heavier than back then.
Probably. Yeah. He is hit with the hidden blade, kicks out at 2, so now Will takes the elbow pad off, and he goes for another one, stopped with a power slam. We get the Uranagi out of the corner into the coquina, and Ospreay is fighting the grip, and then the arm is raised, and on the third arm raise, he reaches the rope, and the muscle buster is set up. Ospreay gets out of harm's way, hits the hidden blade for a 1 count, and then another from behind to pin Joe. All of this in 13 minutes and 55 seconds. They really had a compact match here. And I kind of like that they just let's go out and have a fast-paced 14 minutes. My only thing I'll say is that I wanted more of this submission game. And it's it's one thing if it's building up for something, but you didn't really get any of that they're kind of trying to teach you. This death ground thing wasn't even a focus in this match.
Right. The whole idea of having Ospreay face Shibata and then Joe, to me, kind of feels it's your way of showing whatever sort of submission-based influence he might have, through training of the Death Riders. But you had it. It made for at least the crowd recognized it. I don't think the crowd ever bought into any attempt of by the armbar. I will also say, coming right off of the Moxley Kyle O'Reilly match, it would have been really hard for me to buy Ospreay beating Samoa Joe with an armbar. Like, decent looking, but not as good looking as, some of the armbars that we just saw from O'Reilly. So, ultimately, I feel like they ended the match the way that they should have, with Ospreay just like delivering a really, really strong, high flying performance. I thought the way Ospreay started it off by attacking before the bell, to me, also exemplified a bit of maybe that Death Rider's influence, beyond just like your ground game, but just like having a new level of like killer intensity about him. I thought Joe was fantastic in here. I loved his face slaps into that rolling elbow. I thought the Styles Clash entry was probably one of the more significant spots here for, well, both men, just considering the history and also physically, it looked really impressive. But I really love the variation on like the whole 3-arm lift thing in the Conkina clutch towards the end, where rather than having Ospreay, have his arm raised 3 times and then just like raise it the 3rd time, like at this point it's kind of become cliche. He used the 3rd arm raise to help him reach the ropes, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. As if he couldn't really, didn't have the strength to lift his arm up himself, but because the ref lifted, he was able to just muster enough to direct his arm to fall onto the bottom rope to break out of the move.
So he advances and will face the winner of Mark Davis and Jack Perry whenever they do that one on television, which he might be facing a one-eyed Mark Davis.
Yeah, he might be.
We'll get to Mark Davis
pirate
in a little bit.
Yeah, a Pierre Carl Ouellet.
Yeah,
Mark Davis. It's like the brawl for all.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Swerve and Bandido was next in our final Owen Hart tournament match of the show. Bandido early on avoids a clothesline and just leans into a headstand and then gets him up for the one-arm military press, sending Swerve to the floor, and hits his cannonball off the apron to Swerve, who is seated in a chair. Swerve then Germans Bandido into the turnbuckle to take over control. And they're kind of just like, they're having a fine match. It's kind of just, it's going back and forth. And then it was all of a sudden that this match just escalated. And how did they take this from like gear number 1 to like accelerator? Was Swerve leaps onto the guy's shoulders. He is standing on his shoulders and hits a house call. This guy, who is packing some muscle since this guy has come back, this was a very ambitious spot, and they hit it about as great as you could imagine.
They're both incredibly agile, and Bandido is, he's known for his like freakishly like deceptive strength.
Well, from that moment on, this thing was just nuts. It was like the crowd was like they were with this, but it was just a different volume level. It was like we were back to like the reactions of like the first 2 matches for this. They're on the edge of the apron, and Swerve lifts up Bandido, and Bandido hits a poison Rana off the edge, sending Swerve to the floor. This looked insane. So in the ring, Swerve he's chest down on the mat as Bandido goes for a 21 plex, but he can't hold on to the bridge. And this dude is like convulsing as he's holding his neck. And I just pray that this guy decided, you know what? I need to sell nerve damage, and this is how I'm going to do it, because this was some incredible selling if that was the case from this man. He sets up this guy. He's in a code red position. And he basically like elevates himself up and back to deliver a Rana to Swerve, sending him onto the middle rope for a 21 plex that is caught and turned into a vertebreaker, followed by the house call as Swerve wins in 15 minutes and 20 seconds. There was some unreal stuff in this match between these two, who were like, let's just imagine this is a video game and we are just going to do everything that comes to our imagination. And they kind of did in this one.
Yeah, totally. On paper, I think this was already going to be like an incredible, like, what will they do type of match. And I thought they more than delivered it. I see plenty of people in the chat room saying this was their match of the night, and on a card where you have like 3, maybe at the very least, options for
there
that.
may be more, like the candidates you
To
have.
even be part of that conversation means you must have been a pretty damn great match. I thought this was excellent with some really inventive spots and counters, incredible acrobatics displayed by the two. And it's also a match that told me Swerve is still very much a babyface to this audience.
Yeah, I mean, he was.
How could you not love this guy? You know,
I mean, he did some incredible, like Bandido's just out of this world, and Swerve. It just felt like these two could have just an unbelievable series if they so desired to have these two together. I thought this was going to be quite the match on the show, and it really lived up to and even exceeded that expectation for me, because there was just some mind-blowing stuff in this match. Thekla, Kris Statlander, Hikaru Shida, and Jamie Hayter for the AEW Women's Championship. So we have Shida and Statlander working together at the beginning, but that would eventually fall apart. Hayter and Statlander squared off, and they're hitting each other with shoulder blocks. Neither would go down, and then Thekla would see her opening, and she goes for a high cross and is caught by the two, and then it's Shida taking everyone down with a missile dropkick. Thekla would hit a high cross to all three on the floor. She gets Statlander in a Rings of Saturn and then fish hooks the mouth. So Kris bites her fingers to break free. There is a superplex into a rolling lariat, spear by Thekla. Everyone's in hitting their big moves, and they all go down. Thekla then counters Shida's Falcon Arrow and does the spider walk, and Statlander lifts her up for the Sunday Night Fever, but gets stopped. And Hayter is now alone with Thekla, caught in the octopus submission, but she uses a backbreaker to escape and hits the Hayterade when Shida stops the cover. And Shida hits a Falcon Arrow onto Hayter, and Statlander comes in, stopping Shida, and Shida slaps Statlander, and we basically have the dissolution of Hikaru Shida and Kris Statlander here, as Statlander hits a pump kick to Hayter on the floor and is alone with Thekla, hits the Sunday Night Fever. You think that Statlander has the match won when Shida pulls out the dreaded kendo stick that perhaps Mick Foley brought from Kendra Lust and delivered to Shida. And Hayter pulls Shida to the floor. Thekla stomps Statlander and wins in 14 minutes. There was a lot going on this match, but I thought these four did a great job in this match. Like, we talked about this being one of the colder matches going in. They just went out and they worked really solid. And I thought the four of them looked very good. It's not going to be people's match of the show because they were on like an all-star show, but I thought they did really good for this late in the show and for all the, lack of promotion that this program really received. Like, the story was basically Shida and Statlander. That was about it. So I thought they over-delivered in this match.
Agreed. I thought it offered something different from the rest of the card, at least the rest of the card up until this point, in that it featured like, a multi-person match that offered like pretty well coordinated sequences that were worked at a pretty fast pace. I didn't think it was ever dull. It never felt like, at least so messy that anything was derailed. And I think, to me, the biggest strength of it is that this deep into the show, for a feud, I would say series of feuds that didn't necessarily like come into the show being the most interesting, they held the crowd to a decent level. And maybe this crowd was just an incredible crowd anyway, but I thought the action like lived up to it and certainly maintained the momentum of the show.
Very like hard-hitting action. Like, I thought Hayter really looked good here. Tekla's got just this incredible charisma, and the crowd is still like into Statlander as well. So you don't have like Tekla's basic focus now is just keeping her ready for the Owen winner and doing something with her. I mean, given, the history with Stardom, like, maybe there's something you can do with Thekla for Forbidden Door. Maybe she faces Taro Okada at Forbidden Door.
That is the long-term build. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, I feel like they could have done a better job building up like some of the challengers, because I don't think you bought any of them as
no, that was something that was working against here. But I think when she hit the Sunday Night Fever, people were at least like buying it, so they cared when Shida broke it up with the kendo stick. Stadium Stampede. So we have Ricochet, GOA, Mark Davis, Andrade, and the Dogs all pulling up in their, $1 million vehicles. And that's probably a conservative estimate. And then the babyfaces arrive with this. They arrive to Devil's Dance by Metallica, which Must have been an expensive song because that was the only music that we got in this particular one. That's all they were
Somebody I
for.
saw suggested to us that maybe the music thing might be strictly an Anarchy in the Arena thing, and this is stadium.
Was this not kind of like Anarchy in the Arena?
Totally different things.
Yes,
completely different.
So, yeah, they did this incredible intro for all the baby faces. They're all decked out in suits and ended up basically working the match in their attire here. Jack Perry,
like going for like a Reservoir Dogs type of thing.
That's what I thought as well. He kind of had like with the
I can't believe you didn't notice. That was a clear reference to.
Yeah, it's well, if that they should have all been different colors instead of just going with the yellow and green. But so here we go. We get a big roar as the crowd goes nuts here at the beginning. We do get a wall of 4 screens that they only went to this one time, but they had like this beautiful like graphics for this whole thing, and it seemed like
I think it's fine to have and maybe like good to have in theory, but more often than not, it just kind of like takes away your focus. Like, whenever they did do a split screen thing, I often felt it was almost better to just focus on one thing because the crowd was kind of responding to one thing only anyway.
Well, and you could also see like this was a 31-minute match, and they really limited the stuff outside of the arena. Like this was pretty contained to like what 90% in and around the ring. Like they did not do kind of your stadium stampedes where it's like everyone goes off into their different sections and we're checking in on people. It was like this really was Anarchy in the Arena. Like that's more so what this was. And we should mention like the crowd was going crazy for Judas, and Lashley and Benjamin were so over with this crowd. And I thought the two of them, this is maybe like the best I've seen them used in AEW. They were great as the muscle for the team. And Shelton got like a ton of focus in this as well to do some dives. Like they were really, I thought they were utilized really well in terms of their incorporation into the match.
Same with Toa specifically.
Dude, Toa might have been the star of the match. Like this felt like we're going to make Toa. He was incredible in this. He did a spot early. He lifts both of the Bucks and Jack Perry onto his shoulders for a Samoan drop. That was just, this guy's like stupid strong. It like this was just nuts. And he did it without like any hesitation at all. Ricochet hit a shooting star early on to the floor, and then we get Toa applying an abdominal stretch to Kenny Omega because diverticulitis. And then the 6 partners all chain link their hands together to break the man's intestines, and MVP breaks the chain. I found this amusing.
It was so ridiculous, and in like just this sort of like Kenny and the Bucks comedic type of way, but it fucking worked, and it worked especially like in the Stadium Stampede setting, which I think allows for this sort of like pseudo comedy.
Shelton did a dive, Jericho did a high cross to the floor, and then we get Omega, the Bucks, and Jericho on opposite corners, all delivering top rope Hurricane Ranas in succession, and they decided, let's cut out the punches. Let's just go right to the Ranas, and it worked a lot better. Jack Perry showed up, and he had one of those miniature vacuums that he just broke over Mark Davis's head. And I was wondering if this is what busted open Mark Davis, because he just cracked him over the head with this thing. And then the next time we saw him, his like eye was like bandaged shut, and he was just, I don't know.
I wonder. But
we also had the
he did the vacuum spot, by the way, before on Toa. In the past. Like he just like lobbed him with a giant vacuum last time. And
dust flew everywhere here. This looked disgusting. So then we did break up into some scenes backstage, including the Hurt Syndicate and GOA brawling into this medical area where we got the reunion that no one asked for with Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush. After all these years, they were back together.
Yeah, in totally different iterations. I guess Lashley largely the same, but Lio Rush very different from how he was before.
Did anyone at least propose the idea of Lashley just bending over just for old time's sake?
I was waiting for him to hit him with the pose, and
And Leo just gallops away as he sees the post.
Yeah.
So that was it. They just had Leo rush here for like a second to bite Toa's hand. And then
again, like maybe the element of comedy and these sort of like special appearance types of things is maybe more indicative of a stadium stampede versus an anarchy in the arena. But I personally loved this. I love, like, Leo Rush is such an off the wall character that I think is so, I find captivating in spurts, and this was the perfect way of like having your little cameo with a bit of like Bobby Lashley WWE tie-in. Like he's like a dog that, like, you know, Bobby Lashley just finds that, you know, ultimately like helps him. You know,
maybe these guys have a future together in the Hurt Syndicate.
The Hurt Syndicate's new pet. Yeah.
Yes, pet Leo. Andrade did a selfie with a woman, and as he's going for the shot, Luchasaurus appears with a wig and spits mist into Andrade.
It's ridiculous.
Jericho brought out a bag of tennis balls, which prompted the crowd, who's been chanting bald all night and at Ricochet here, to chant balls as he suplexes Ricochet onto the balls. It's like somewhere Darby Allin's watching this and being like, man, they get such a great reaction and they're falling on tennis balls.
Maybe someday he will transition. He will have his Mick Foley, Mr. Sacco transformation.
He's got to see his version of a Kane Dewey sign and turn on the fans and take it away from them.
Sure.
Davis and Perry are in catering, and this is when Wai Ting's favorite extra made it.
Oh my God!
Into Stadium Stampede. We got the return of Tommy Invincible for this great moment where Mark Davis was okay here because he wasn't bandaged here in catering. So
yeah, unless this was a pre-tape somehow that they might have cut to.
I guess that's a fair point too. Possible. I don't know what the spot was because
I didn't see anything here that would have, like, you know, damaged his eye that badly. It was
maybe the vacuum, because nothing here would suggest that the man might have lost an eye.
Tommy Invincible must have been responsible. He must have did this to poor Mark Davis.
Yeah, he got murdered, and then Andrade.
So has Tommy Invincible been on AEW before?
The
fact that you even have to think about it suggests, like, what, you know, like, who are they playing to here? Like, I know he's got a. I don't think
he has been, unless there's like an ROH appearance. That I don't think this guy's ever been on Collision or Dynamite.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know how many people would even like know the reference, other than the fact that I know he is. He has a social media following.
It's if you got it, you got it, and if you didn't, it's like it's a blip on the radar of this match.
But if you've seen him in JCW and these clusterfucks and like the Matt Cardona feud, it's so much better because this guy is the best.
Really funny.
And then this guy.
Well, we're still in catering. Andrade knocks into.
Oh! By the way, they did say, thank you, EZ251. They said Davis hit his eye on the chair leg, which I believe was in this particular scene in catering in the back.
Okay,
or somewhere back here.
That sounds fun. So Andrade knocks it into Satnam Singh, which is the first we have seen this guy in like years on AEW proper.
This man got on a plane, you know. Get here,
and he arrived, and they're like, "Okay, this is what you're gonna do." And dude, Andrade was so funny here. He turns around and he's like, "Oh shit, oh fuck," and then gets killed by Satnam Singh here. So that was our food, and then we had a food fight at the end. Why not?
Poor Mark Davis might have lost an eye.
Yeah, this would be the segment, I guess. Imagine that. Connor's back in the arena is placed into a shopping cart with a trash can over top and wheeled into a super kick by Nick. Jericho and Ricochet go backstage, and they got one of those tennis ball machines, and Jericho starts shooting it at Ricochet. We also got the cameo from Luther, who was back here, to give Jericho an oversized tennis racket. And it's like, well, not all ideas land, but this was one of them.
It was fine.
Sure,
no,
why not? No. What I did find amusing was this tennis ball machine. It didn't stop shooting as Jericho went in front to pin Ricochet, and these balls are still firing off, and they're at some close range here. I was waiting for Jericho to just lose his eye here, but Ricochet kicks out. We go back to the ring, and we pretty much stay, except for this one. We go to Mark Davis, who is now fully transformed into Marv from Home Alone because he is stumbling outside, bandaged around his face, including his entire eye that is covered in a bandage. And he goes to a vehicle and finds a note with Jack Perry's knife inside of it. And he turns as the Jurassic Express pulls up and drives into these cars. And we cut away with the conclusion that Mark Davis has been murdered.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And then he just, poof, he's back ringside like wrestling.
Oh, he must have escaped. Yeah.
I guess so. Jack Perry took a look and he was like, oh, okay.
This was a pretty serious like stunt here. And I know like this guy like has been driving this, like this is his daily vehicle. I think like he drives this like to indie shows. He drives this everywhere. So I hope this wasn't a total loss. And I hope that they can fix this poor car.
Man, he needs to get Dylan's old Porsche.
I don't get the
Actually,
reference,
the
but I
black
appreciate
one,
it.
That was the one he drove down the big mountain during his season 5 Exodus. So we have the sorry, this is just such a ridiculous match. Yeah. We're back to the ring and we see Toa takes a German off the apron through a table by Shelton Benjamin. The spot we always say, like, you tease but never do. Toa was in AJ Styles mode tonight. He's like, no, German me through this table. So he went through that. That's the end of Toa. And then Andrade takes a one-winged angel off the apron by Kenny.
It's a big succession of table spots from everybody involved. So you got something like 7.
The Bucks did the elbows to the floor, taking out the dogs. And then, Kenny hit this incredible one-winged angel to take out Andrade. Ricochet is left alone. So it's 7-on-1. He takes everyone's finisher, including the BTE trigger. And Jericho sets up for the Judas effect when Khan, who, quite frankly, had not had any real moment in this entire match, saves Ricochet and takes the bullet for him, and it results in a 7-way super kick by the babyfaces and Jericho winning with the Lion Salt, but not to Ricochet in 31 minutes and 15 seconds. And this basically they all like took a bow, like this was the end of like a live Broadway play, and Judas is playing and the Hurt Syndicate give Jericho the thumbs up, which I guess is the official bearing of the hatchet between entities. And
I think he's in the group now. He should join the group, yeah.
Yeah. And then Jericho sets up a table, points to the sky as a tribute to Sabu, and jumps through the table.
I don't think he actually set up the table, because if you watch closely, his table didn't break of the whole like series of table spots. Because he was towards the end, and his splash off the corner didn't actually break the table.
Okay, well, he went through it here.
Yeah, so I think like it was one to break the table that didn't break, and also I guess to spontaneously give a tribute to Sabu, perhaps. This match was awesome. I mean, 14 people in one match, and somehow they made it all work. You know, a match like this, I think. You did a great job recapping it, first of all, John. You know,
dude, I literally, if you could see my screen here, like I broke this up into like chapters. It was just like an insane match to recap.
These are like the types of matches you really just kind of sit back and absorb more than really like digest and think about. It really is the best party match you can get in professional wrestling. And, you know, like really what we got to see here was all these heels take a huge beating. Like the heels, especially the dogs, like their job here was to just like get destroyed by the baby faces. And I think that's totally the right call, because it's just the goal is to make the match fun. And it was fun as hell to see these heels get beaten up. Heat will be achieved later on in other ways. But I thought like for tonight, you just want to create an incredible atmosphere and an incredible feeling for this audience. And I thought almost all the spots worked, or at least attempts towards it were appreciated for maybe their effort and creativity. But that final table sequence with all the tables, I thought was just excellent. And, you know, they have to live up to the standard of like being one of the most fun matches of the year. And I thought they managed to live up to that, certainly.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it was my favorite version of the match, but it was like just to pull this off. Like it's really incredible to see this done. Like a 31-minute fight scene involving 14 people. Like it's just like logistically, you have to be able to appreciate just being able to pull off something of this caliber with this many people on a live pay-per-view. Like that's where I really just am so impressed with this, and like they had some great moments in this thing overall as well. And it's one of their staple matches, and it's probably one of the hardest matches to put together and get all these ideas and so many different people that are probably contributing. Like it's really worth people's time. I didn't see all of it, but they did do the Bucks posted a director's commentary of the first Stadium Stampede. Wow. And it was really like, I watched like most of it, and it was really interesting. It was like the first time they had watched it back, and it also features some footage of like behind the scenes of that day when they were shooting it as well. So
yeah, a lot of credit to the production team involved in being able to capture like the chaos of a match like this.
And Tommy Invincible,
especially him, the MVP, the other MVP of the match.
The final match of the night. And if you thought this crowd was like exhausted or burnt out, not a chance, because they were so ready for this match with Darby Allin and MJF, title versus hair. And we had this.
That is a real testament, I think, to just the strength of the storytelling and Darby's incredible run as champion. Like this to me feels like a very legitimate main event that people probably came for a number of matches, but I think they were, like, I will say myself, I was most anticipating this particular match, and it coming off of a Stadium Stampede and still achieving the reaction that it did. I think like that alone is a major achievement for an AEW main event.
So we had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Darby with his entrance, where he arrived skating through the New York sewer system and into Louis Armstrong Stadium. And this place went nuts for Darby. Like, he feels like he has elevated himself to a level that is like, this guy will be like this title run has truly cemented him as like a bigger star. Like, I think this title reign is going to be remembered very fondly and for a long time as well.
Yeah. One of, like, in 1 month, he managed to, I think you could say, achieve one of the greatest AEW title runs, at least just in terms of content, in terms of just like amazing pace. Absolutely.
MJF informs Justin Roberts to announce he is not hailing from any of the 5 bullshit boroughs, and he is from a mansion that none of you can afford. So we start off, as only we can, with multiple side headlock takeover attempts by Darby to try and catch MJF, but he kicks out each time. And then Darby goes for a dive to the floor, and his feet clip the top rope, and he comes down. I have seen this guy take some incredible falls. I literally thought that this guy, like, that this was the one. I thought this was it for this guy. He came down. It was the speed at which he came down, on top of how bad he came down on his head and neck. That was like, if ever there is going to be a match that is called off for Darby, this might be it. But he went another, however lengthy he went after. This was like 2 minutes into the match.
I know.
And I thought this guy was paralyzed.
And like the spot was designed to make us concerned. I don't think they intended for it to like be this legitimately like frightening.
Right. Like he was gonna crash and burn, but not like. Don't think he had the feet clipping, because he just had no control of this way he was about to land.
There was an element of realism to this fall that just sucked you into the match, much like Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, at 25.
Yes, and this match too would take out a camera operator.
That's right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So MJF takes over, and he is attacking Darby after the dive and hits him with an apron bomb and teases a tombstone off the turnbuckle that Darby avoids and flips into a stunner. And he goes for the coffin drop off the metal post, missing MJF on the edge of the apron. And with that, MJF capitalizes by lifting up Darby and delivering a package pile driver onto the steel steps. Darby then stops a side headlock takeover, low blows MJF behind the referee's back, which they cite as revenge for Mick Foley earlier in the night, who got low blowed, and he uses the side headlock takeover for a 2 count. He works for a Scorpion Deathlock, goes for the coffin drop again, and lands on the knees. And then, almost as though Darby had a point to prove here of like all the people who think I just do crazy stunts. They decided, let's just do the most insane 2-minute sequences here where they just go into all these side headlock takeovers, sunset flips, and then this crazy fish out of water spot with all these 1 counts as Bryce is getting down there and counting, ending with this code red. And when MJF kicks out,
all of this was very much a callback, in my opinion, to their 2021 match, which was like mostly wrestling and great wrestling like this.
Yeah, like this sequence was awesome, and the whole crowd just applauded at the end of it as they're both down on the mat selling. Darby hits the tope suicida, and then MJF pulls, when he goes for the tope suicida, MJF pulls one of the camera operators in front of him. So you're literally seeing the dive from the camera operator's point of view as he gets knocked down. They showed this replay, and it was like, it wasn't the most impressive fall that this guy took, but I was glad that they tried this idea of you're literally watching a Darby dive into your living room.
Really great idea to just, I mean, it was very effective in that it really looked like Darby just kind of coming into the camera. I wish they would have vetted the replay better, because the replay did kind of kill the spot, because you could clearly see the cameraman was nowhere near the point of impact. The cameraman rightfully was prioritizing the shot. So Darby was hitting the camera.
Brought up, he's like, he was still getting the shot.
Right, yeah.
And they had to help this poor guy to the back, and they continue. MJF takes Darby up the aisle and puts Darby into the barber's chair and tries to use the razor, but Darby uses a guillotine, putting MJF unconscious on top of the table that's set up at the entrance with the barber tools. And Darby climbs up this scaffold at the entrance, and this was really high up. He's on top here, and he does the bang bang and a coffin drop coming down backwards, and he immediately grabs his head, and the next we see him, he's busted from the back of his head, which looked to be just hard way blood that he got here. I don't think Darby was trying to outsmart the commission on this night.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so either, but I think you always have to throw the but in there, because you couldn't see him for an amount of time, and it directly played into the finish.
He
kept holding his head, kept checking on his head.
It is possible. And it's like, if there is a place where you are going to, if you get busted open accidentally, there's no helping that. Mm-hmm. So it's all in what your defense would be for a situation like this. So I'm with you. It was convenient as well. That said, I don't think it needed the blood. I think you could have done the exact same story, because they had already introduced this with Darby passing out and he's hurt. But the blood, I guess, it does tell that story.
The blood really helped specifically target the point of impact, I suppose, on the head, and maybe made that headlock takeover that much more effective.
Well, it is possible. So he is brought back into the ring, and he hits another coffin drop, but MJF kicks out. So Darby puts him in a scorpion deathlock, but he can't hold on. He collapses and has to release the hold, and MJF goes for the headlock takeover, but Darby stops it and hits a scorpion death drop. He's back to his feet. He powers up, and the crowd thinks Darby's going to pull it off, and he climbs to the top. MJF knocks him off balance and hits the tombstone off the turnbuckle, and then the side headlock takeover to pin Darby, and wins the match in 23 minutes and 10 seconds as he wins the title for the third time. And Darby gets placed onto a stretcher. Let's talk about the post-match after. Let's talk about the match first.
Sure. Yeah. I thought this match was amazing. On a show this
These two had nearly perfect chemistry together.
God.
It's they are just perfect opponents for one another. And yeah, this was a really excellent match that, it had this great story. I kind of like that this is the way the Darby title reign ends, where it's not to be morbid, but it's when, this, superstar, passes away young, that it's just this legendary thing. That's what this title run is. It ended after 5 weeks, And these 5 weeks are going to be remembered as like the most insane, crazy title reign of all time. That is going to be Darby's legacy with this title. That it's instead of letting this go on for 2 or 3 months.
Very possibly. More importantly, Darby, I think, had built so much love from the audience for him that this particular moment of Max taking the belt off of him gave a huge amount of like, it elevated Max to beat Darby in this way. And to be able to
They
achieve
were
that
genuinely like sad to see this guy lose the title, which is not an emotion you get too often for a champion losing. It can happen, but it's rare.
Not to mention the fact that they teased the head shaving so hard that, you know, you got the heartbreak of Darby Allin losing the match, but you also have the heartbreak of not being able to see him get his head shaved bald. So this was like, you know, doubly heartbreaking, like for people that are supporting the babyface. But just even the match alone, it delivered so high on action and creativity. You had your Darby Allin stunt show, starting with that incredible tope at the beginning that probably looked looked even worse than they were intending it to look. But of course, like, brought you into the match that much more. That dive into the cameraman, that crazy dive off the scaffold. And again, very fascinated by the use of blood here, if it was intentional or if it was not intentional. Maybe someday we will find out. But everything was fantastic. But
I Darby has asked. I'm sure it was accidental.
Yeah, that's right. Someday in the book of Darby Allin, you know, we'll get the answer.
It was like Brett at WrestleMania 8.
Exactly. But my favorite sequence might have been right in the middle with the series of near falls, perfectly executed. Just like that perfect reminder that behind all the gimmickry, all the blood, all this other stuff are two amazing technical wrestlers. You know, so I think more than anything, like I'm so impressed by this because to me it shows the maturity of AEW as a company, and that you could have two of your original pillars now be able to like be mature enough to be able to legitimately sell out the house and deliver a main event that I think actually, in my opinion, topped this incredibly stacked card. Both in
do you remember 2 years ago they did the 4 pillars match, and that was like a big thing that it did not headline the show. And this year, like, there was no question what was like the drawing match and the match that was going to close the show. Not a debate at all.
Yeah. For me, this was my match of the night. But of course, that
I wouldn't argue. Like,
that is open to plenty of debate from people that I'm seeing in the chat room who also feel like, you know, Swerve and Bandido might deserve that honor. Some people felt Takeshita Okada. Others may have felt
the tag match,
the tag match, or even Joe and Ospreay. Like, you have a number of really, really high level candidates for this particular show, which was incredible.
Yeah, I really love this main event. Like, it might have been mine as well. I really love that I Quit match. Takeshi. I would say that the first 2 matches of the show and this main event, I thought those 3 were my contenders for match of the night. I'd put maybe Swerve and Bandido right below that, but it's like,
and what are you leaving out here? Stadium Stampede. You know,
I'm not even mentioning Ospreay Joe among
Mox
those.
Mox and Kyle O'Reilly. Are you including in that?
I'm putting that like alongside like Swerve and Bandido. Like quite frankly, folks, this was literally one of the best AEW shows of all time. I won't go so far as to say the best, but if you wanted to make that argument, you could for this show. Like, from all aspects, like, yes, you got the great show quality, you got several big angles on the show, some big consequential outcomes. It was a show that, like, they sold out, like, business wise. This is going to be a show that you look back on at the end of the year as, I think, one of AEW's bigger success stories of the year is going to be this show, and drawing on top with a stipulation match that really has elevated Darby, and it catapults MJF now into this next title reign. Like, this was a home run show in many respects.
Yeah. Or maybe a grand slam. What's another tennis analogy?
Well, people loved this show.
Okay. Very good.
So Darby is put on a stretcher, and MJF just poses over top of him on the stretcher.
Like he posed over Hangman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The same with Hangman as well. Yeah. Great visual here. And as he holds the belt, out comes Kevin Knight chasing MJF away, and they're pointing out how Kevin Knight's the last guy to beat MJF. And as they're wheeling out, Darby Allin, Kevin Knight, he's fixed on the turnbuckle and he jumps, and the crowd realizes it right before he jumps. It's like, oh my God, he's going to turn, and he does the UFO splash onto Darby on the stretcher. And dude, he took a lot of punishment over this last half hour. And then it's like your arms are tied in as you have to take this splash. And then it was just the exclamation point. This stretcher tipped over with Darby strapped in. It was just like the last gasp of life evaporating from this man's body. And the whole place, they just boo Kevin Knight. MJF is clapping. And yeah, you've got Kevin Knight doing the big turn. And I cannot wait for his pep talk with Speedball on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to give Kevin Knight this moment, this big show closing moment, I mean, is again like a huge, like it escalates him to. I mean, I guess the idea is Darby versus Kevin Knight for a TNT level thing, but I mean, this feels like it's like a world title level thing because it's closing your world title.
I'd hold this
program.
off. Like, I wouldn't want to blow this one away. Like, I think this guy should do Speedball. If anything, like, to really emphasize this win by MJF and playing off like what he did to Hangman, like I think Darby should disappear for a little bit and then he comes back, and like I'd hold off this Kevin Knight thing till like All In.
Yeah, if that's the case, so this was great. Okay, there's no arguing like the value and the spotlight that you're giving Kevin Knight here. I guess in my mind, I was hoping for the turn to take place like with Speedball. I think that would have like, you know, been that much more emphatic and you know, would feel a bit more understandable. Here, I guess the explanation is that Knight, of course, like asked Darby and told Darby to win it for them, and Darby failed. But it doesn't make complete logical sense to me that his immediate reaction would be to attack Darby Allin while on a gurney, like viciously like this. But of course, that could be explained via promo, which I look forward to on Wednesday.
Yeah, like he has the win over MJF. This is actually great for him. He should be getting an automatic shot. Like he beat the guy, and now he's the champion. This is great news. So
we'll see what he says on Wednesday, of course.
Yeah, thumbs up.
15 thumbs up. Yes,
yeah, this was a fantastic show that AEW put on.
It will be a contender for match of the year.
It's definitely my front runner after after tonight. Yeah, just a terrific show from AEW. Do you want to go through some feedback / super chats?
Yeah, let's go to some super chats here. Thank you, everybody watching us at youtube.com/postwrestling. We are live for all of these pay-per-view events, but if you want to join us live right after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown, consider signing up for the Post Wrestling Cafe. This is where we run this entire ship from our Patreon and our wonderful community of subscribers who not only get these shows live right after those events, but also get extended versions of these shows where John and I talk about the daily news events and also talk about your questions and feedback at the end of all of these particular podcasts. So with all that said, we are live on YouTube, so super chats are open if you guys want to get your comment or questions in. And we go first to Jake from the Windy City, who says, an incredible pay-per-view tonight, and the city of New York brought their best all night. Madison Square Garden should grow a spine and allow an AEW show there.
Yeah, I know everyone's like really high on them doing Madison Square Garden. Personally, I prefer them like going to these new venues that they're making their own. I get it's a prestige thing to run Madison Square Garden, and they do very well. I think their first time there. It's also like a super expensive building to run, that it's like, what's the prestige you're getting out of it versus like what you could make by doing Arthur Ashe Stadium or, something similar. I like the fact that like they're trying to find venues to make their own. That's why I love the Arthur Ashe booking when they first did it all those years ago. Like you're going to New York and it's a place that, WWE would never even think of running, and no wrestling company has thought of running.
I'm of a similar mind too. I kind of like this exploration of like seeing what wrestling is like in these very different types of venues, more so than, trying to do something like that. Jake also sends $10. Thank you very much, Jake, to say, I know Ospreay Omega is the popular choice for All In, but after tonight, I think it should be MJF and Will again with the proper heel versus face dynamic. Would that be okay, or would it be disappointing?
No, I mean that's a perfectly, like, that's definitely an option for you that you could 100%. Go with. Yeah.
Yep. I think they have a number of options. I mean, but yes, like Kenny versus Ospreay might be at the top of the list, but I don't think MJF and Ospreay is that far behind. especially with an MJF that feels to me kind of renewed coming off of this, Darby Allin defeat.
Let's go to
Forum.ProStuff.com.
Yeah, we're going to start with Mark. I feel like a broken record, but what a show. The crowd was insane all night. I think New York City should definitely be in contention for All In 2027. The soon-to-open MLS stadium, Etihad Park, has a 25,000 capacity for soccer. It seems like a perfect destination event, that or Citi Field. This show just felt like a company that's firing on all cylinders and waiting for the wider audience at large to catch up. However, more importantly, rewarding those who are turning up and tuning in show after show. I look forward to the next few months. It is going to be an exciting summer to be watching.
Interesting. 25,000 for All In. Yeah. Sounds like a good amount, right?
Yeah,
good goal.
I feel like this is a show that could have done, I don't know if it would have done 20,000. I think it would have done 18. I think that would have been a safe estimate to make. But I don't know.
But with the All In brand, I mean, I think they could hit 25,000. I mean, how much did they hit for Texas?
Yeah, Texas, it was around 21-ish. I don't think Wembley's going to be the option next year.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, not at this rate. Okay, let's see what Nick says. Nick says Christian Cage is the first person to hold the AT&T Championship, World Tag Team Championship, and the World Trios Championship. Kyle Fletcher returning and turning on Takeshita was unexpected. Takeshita winning the International Championship. Good. He won it again. He's the third man to hold this championship twice after Orange Cassidy and Will Ospreay. All right. So some stats here from Nick.
Statistics. Dave writes, leaving the show now, and I hope it came across as loud on TV as it was in the arena because, my God, it was loud here all night. My top match of the night was Takeshita against Okada, followed very closely by the main event and Ospreay against Joe. I knew MJF would probably go over, but I did not expect a Kevin Knight heel turn. In fact, I was predicting Hangman to return, if anything. Big Boom AJ got an absolutely massive pop on the pre-show, and this crowd made everybody seem like a massive star in general. This is by a large margin the best top-to-bottom pro wrestling event I've ever been to and the most stacked roster of any American promotion. He also goes on to say that,
is American promotion like a necessary qualifier? Is there like a promotion in the world that has a roster like this?
Present day, no. All time,
sure. Yeah, let's throw that out there.
In terms of like WCW at its peak, like it had a lot of stars, it had a lot of great talent, but not at this depth and level.
Incredible.
Where you can go down the list and
maybe you can make the argument that like great talented rosters have existed in the past, but maybe not utilized the way they seem to be, like on a monthly basis on these sort of shows.
Yes, I think that would be very fair. He goes to say goes on to say the Long Island Railroad and New York City subway system significantly slowed down their train schedules and locked the entrance to the station during the show, leaving about 15,000 people to walk 2 miles to the next train station. I just ate $70 to Uber back to my hotel. Don't love that this show ended at midnight when the trains don't come as frequently. Plus, it's Memorial Day weekend in America, so trains are being adjusted for holiday hours. Yeah, it sounds like going to wrestling shows in New York City late at night is not fun. / New Jersey for that WrestleMania.
Yeah. I don't envy you guys trying to get out of there. Just be grateful that you, I suppose, saw one of the great wrestling shows, certainly of this year, maybe ever.
Chat about it among your 15,000 people walking those miles.
That's it, yeah. But I mean, Sunday East Coast show going this late, yes, it's a common complaint,
But it is, he does bring up it's a holiday in the States as well. So
okay, sure.
That's,
right.
a bit of a reprieve.
Let's go to Brian in New Jersey, who says, incredible pay-per-view once again. Only match on the main card that felt expendable to me was the silly Stadium Stampede, but I was still entertained by it, and I enjoyed the cameos. Everything else here was good to great, with Okada versus Takeshita probably being my favorite, followed by Ospreay versus Joe, Swerve versus Bandido, and Moxley versus O'Reilly. The main event ebbed and flowed with a solid ending and a shocking turn. Louis Armstrong Stadium looked and sounded incredible, and AEW should really hone in on every unique sports stadium out there. Good for first night for Mick Foley. What are we missing here? Like a maybe a bowling alley, like a ballet recital hall, a swimming pool, like a big Olympic size swimming pool, perhaps.
What about like Radio City Music Hall? They set up a ring there.
If you think MSG is expensive, I imagine that wouldn't be cheap.
How about the Ed Sullivan Theater? It just got vacated this week.
It's open now. You're right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Jordan from the Bronx at Double or Nothing. Incredible show. Match of the night for me was Swerve and Bandido, followed by Takeshita and Okada. Stadium Stampede was a ton of fun. Thekla is very over live. The venue itself had great views all around. My con about the venue was a lack of air conditioning and ventilation. The pyro smoke hung in the air all night, and it was a very cold 55 degrees Fahrenheit. 8.5 out of 10. I don't think we've ever gotten a temperature check on the indoors of a particular venue.
So that's about 12 degrees Celsius, which is very cold. So I guess you're missing. Well, there was heat, but not
that type of heat.
HVAC variety. Okay.
You know what? The more feedback we're getting live, I'm really glad I was home to watch this because you're not selling me on the live experience of this show. But hey, it was a great show.
I think I'm docking marks for this event, okay, because of the lack of ventilation.
Yeah. Did you realize the train shut down afterwards?
Oh no. I'm sure everybody had a great time, including our friends at Poison Rana, who are documenting their entire trip over on their Patreon. So
maybe you will see them on a 2-mile walk to the next train station.
Perhaps, yeah. And I believe they're probably going to record their review actually on their channel. So do check out youtube.com / Poison Rana Pod. Let's go to Charlie Bastillo, who says, "What a show! AEW keeps rewarding me with great shows, and I keep coming to watch them. Just a comment on the main event: the story makes sense. Darby risked his body and his soul for the World Championship, but it wasn't enough. MJF winning made sense, but turning Kevin Knight was shocking. Can't wait to see where this goes."
Okay. Let's continue on with Eddie from New Jersey. Lucky enough to be there live. Amazing show. I love the angles with Fletcher and Kevin Knight, Joe against Ospreay, and then Swerve versus Bandido back-to-back was insane. 2 of the best matches of the year for me. No one's bringing up this I Quit match. I was very high on that match.
It was very strong.
I thought it was outstanding, like a really outstanding match. But it's not coming up a lot here in the feedback. But there was a lot of competition.
Would you like to take the next line? I think you just do a much better job than I
Okay,
did.
let's go here from the desk of David Bixenspan. I elected not to go to this show because I just don't feel up for a Tony Time level night out right now. All right, and okay.
Don't edit. Come on. Let's get the whole
There's a
thing.
lot here. Okay. What the hell is with the USTC still being completely unequipped for these shows? It's been 5 years, multiple shows, and yet until right now, the pay-per-view proper started. The line to get in was apparently backed up to the boardwalk that connects the complex to the train stations, which never happened at the Grand Slam show. So yeah, this was what we were mentioning earlier, that it seemed like it was quite the hassle to get in. He says, "What an amazing, insane show. Quite possibly the best pay-per-view in AEW history. The opener was probably the best match of Adam Copeland's career, and up there for the 3 other guys, too. Okada Takeshita was match of the year level, and Okada has match of the year on lockdown so far between this and the Tanahashi match. Athena Mina was a very solid tournament opener, even with a couple mistimed spots. Moxley O'Reilly was the best match of their feud so far, which was a high bar. Both men's matches in the Owen were fantastic." Goes on to say the women's title match is very strong with a great Jamie Hayter performance. Stadium Stampede, a mixed bag, but if you're going to make violence in the venue a Double or Nothing tradition, it's going to have to rely more on pre-tapes and comedy in a strict commission state, and the main event was spectacular. Goes on to say the tennis stadium acoustics were amazing on top of having a sold-out crowd that very much knew what their assignment was. More wrestling at tennis stadiums, please. Maybe that's the unlock that we need to take, okay? Tennis stadiums.
Yeah. They've done a great job of it so far.
But based on what I'm hearing out of Flushing, there needs to be a concerted effort to get AEW, the venue, and the Metropolitan Transportation Authority on the same page the next time they run Louis Armstrong or Arthur Ashe, because it sounds like getting into the show was a mess, and getting out of the show is a disaster that is genuinely unsafe. Yeah, it sounds like this was quite. I'll have to read up more on this after the fact, because obviously we had to record right away. But it's sounds like getting out of here was a mess, and. He has posted some videos here. If you want to go to the forum, I guess there are some videos of people that are getting out of here, but I don't want us to get a...
Yeah. Okay, why don't I play this? Bix actually requested that I play this one in particular.
Okay. These are people that are leaving?
Yeah, this one is from somebody by the name of Henry T. Casey on Blue Sky. And what am I looking at? What the fuck is this?
Can you enlarge it?
Yeah. Are people? What are they doing? They're jumping out of
Yeah, they're trying to get out.
Some sort of thing. This is wild. This is at the end of the AEW show? Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
This sounds like
Huh.
I don't know.
Well,
it's like Lord of the Flies getting out of this.
quite the scene.
Again, this is a great home viewing experience. That's all I'm going to say about
This
this.
is the price you pay for watching great professional wrestling, I suppose. Wow.
Okay, let's do last one here. I'll finish this off here. Wait, Corey from Long Island. This was my first AEW pay-per-view experience, and I have to say it did not feel like the never-ending slog I was expecting it to be. Perhaps it's just being in the arena, but I felt like the show kept a fairly brisk pace, all things considered, and I left not feeling totally drained. Quick audience experience observation. It's not like Tony could have predicted this when scheduling the show, but it was 55 degrees Fahrenheit and felt much more frigid due to the damp weather. Not ideal.
No.
His highlights were the Okada-Takeshita match, which featured some incredible counter wrestling as well as a fantastic opener in the form of the tag title match. But the winner for match of the night was easily Bandido and Swerve. Just utterly mind-bending stuff from these two. They had the crowd on another level. The low light for me was the Stadium Stampede match. I felt like the match was a bit too, for lack of a better term, cute in the sense that it was clearly a string of gags and really lacked the chaotic electric energy that previous incarnations of Stadium Stampede and Anarchy in the Arena had. I felt like there were major lulls at times and found myself looking at my watch and phone every now and then. Probably could have used some music. Who Let the Dogs Out would have been great. Bix already went over all the insane trials and tribulations us audience members had getting out of the arena, but suffice to say, I feel like these stadiums were not really made to house wrestling like this. Still had a nice night out regardless. So, yeah, it seems like it was quite the hassle getting in and getting out after the fact, and bring a winter jacket.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it looked great on camera, and I wonder.
And they sounded great. Like it did not sound like. Sometimes you've had some of those frigid Japanese arenas that you can just tell like they're freezing inside, and it really can hurt the show. This
is the opposite of a sumo hall.
Yeah, this was. Yeah, maybe this was more to WH's liking. Rather be freezing cold than sweltering heat. But hey, it was a fantastic show. Live experience to be determined based on your experience. But that is going to bring us to a close. I want to thank everyone who joined us here. Great feedback, great questions. And coming up this week on the Post Wrestling Cafe, the only place that we can truly dive into the state of men is going to be on the Post Wrestling Cafe this Tuesday. Louis Theroux inside the Manosphere, where I'm all caught up and I'm ready to chat about this with Wai Ting on Tuesday. So that is coming out this Tuesday for everybody on the Post Wrestling Cafe.
Yeah, so this was the runner-up of our patrons poll, but by very, very close margin. So we decided to review it anyway on a bit of a delay, and I'm actually quite looking forward to it. Haven't seen it yet, heard all about it. I'm looking forward to discussing the topic.
All right, so that's on Tuesday, and we will be back here Monday night following Raw. So to everyone, have a good night. Enjoy your Memorial Day, and we hope that you get home safely if you're still traveling home from Louis Armstrong Stadium. Good night.